All right, I want to save you some embarrassment and let you at least get to know the different parts of your instrument so that when someone's referring to you change your tuning pegs or change your strings, or that's probably because of your bridge, you know what in the world they're talking about. So first of all, we've got a couple different kinds of stringed instruments. We've got bowed strings like violin, cello, viola, where you would use a bow to make the strings vibrate. And then we have the plucked or the strummed stringed instruments, and those are the ones where you would pluck the strings or strum the strings in order to make them vibrate. So we're going to kind of set aside the bowed stringed instruments and just focus on the strummed string instruments, which would include banjo, ukulele, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, and bass guitar. And those are the ones we're going to focus on for today. So let's start here at the top. At the very top, we've got something called the headstock. That's like the chunk of wood usually at the top that's going to hold all of the tuning pegs and the tuning keys, all of the stuff that has to do with the tuning of your guitar. So that's the headstock on any instrument. Let me show you the headstock of a couple other ones. So the banjo, this is the headstock on a banjo. Looks like that. In this one, the tuning pegs are actually back behind. That's not always the case with all the banjos. And then on the bass guitar, you'd have the headstock that looks like that. And so we've got the tuning keys, the tuning pegs, all on the top part, the headstock, the chunk of wood there at the top. And then we've got the tuning keys. Let's go ahead and go to this one here. I've got a lot of guitars to choose from here. So the tuning keys are these parts right here, the flat parts usually that you would twist around, like you would twist a key in a door. So that part I usually get confused with the tuning pegs. I get those names mixed up all the time. The peg is actually the peg where you're going to wrap the string around in order to tune the guitar. I'll give you a close-up look at that. That's the tuning pegs, and then these are the tuning keys here. And then after that, we have something called the nut. And let me go to the ukulele for this one. So the nut it looks like it's the first fret. So the frets are these metal things. We'll talk about those in a second. And so this right here looks like it's just the same as all the other metal lines that are here. But if you look really closely, you'll find that it's usually made out of plastic on strummed string instruments and wood on bowed string instruments. And that's just where the string is getting lifted up a little bit, so it's not laying flat on the neck of your instrument. So if we didn't have a nut there, then it would probably the string would be wound around the tuning peg, and then it would get stretched down here to the bridge. We'll talk about that in a second too. And then it would just lay flat against the neck, the fretboard. So the nut just kind of lifts it up a little bit. It gives you a little bit of space so that you can press your fingers down on the different frets. So then we are kind of already got to this, the metal parts that go across here underneath the strings, those are called frets. Now, we'll talk about this more in other lessons, but when we say that we're going to put our finger on a fret, that's not quite the case. We're actually going to put our finger really close to the fret, but not quite on it. So, like on the first fret would be like right there. And then when we say on the first fret, what we really mean is right there, right next to the first fret. But this one right here would be the first fret. This is not a fret. That's the nut. So that's the first fret right there, then the second fret, and the third fret. And then we have these little markers on the side too, and the ukulele is really convenient to show to you. We've got these little tiny dots here. And then you've also got dots that are frequently on the actual neck right there. So you can see I've got like a little decoration right there, a little decoration right there. Let me show you on some other instruments here. Most of the strummed string instruments have this. So then on this one, it's like a little design right there, little design right there. It looks like it's just for decoration. And like I said, most of these strummed stringed instruments have this, or the plucked string instruments like you would pluck a bass. So you've got a dot right here, a dot right here, and you've got the dots on the side. So these are actually position markers, and these tell you what fret you're on, because sometimes you need to jump to like the 4th fret, or let's say the 6th fret. Well, having to count all the way from the bottom, 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret, 6th fret, that takes a long time. So the way this works is the dots usually go on the odd number frets. Nope, the dots always go on the odd number frets. So there's a dot right there, there's a decoration right there. You probably don't need a decoration on the 1st fret because you can probably find the 1st fret pretty easily, hopefully. But I've seen guitars that have a decoration on or a position marker on the first fret. So that'll just tell you that's the first fret, and then so they usually start at the third fret, or some of them even start at the fifth fret because they assume like you could find the third fret pretty easily just by looking at it, like that's the third fret. So that'd be the third fret, and then the fifth fret, and then the seventh fret, and then the ninth fret. So it's all the odd numbers all the way through. Let me show you that on a different instrument. On the acoustic guitar, we've got this one here so this one actually starts on the fifth fret. There's no decoration you can see on that third fret. So they just assume when they're making this one, yeah, you can find the third fret pretty easily. Definitely the first fret, probably the third fret. Where you really start to need help is on the fifth fret. So if you need to go to the sixth fret, you would just count up. You'd count, if it had a dot right here, the third fret and the fifth fret, and you go one over. So that kind of helps you out with that. Now, they all also have some kind of special decoration on the 12th fret, which is not an odd number. And you might notice there's kind of a weird gap here because we got the 5th fret, the 7th fret, the 9th fret, and then you should have the 11th fret, but they don't have anything on the 11th fret, and they do have on the 12th fret. That's because when we start talking about the letter names on plucked or strummed string instruments, the 12th fret is a really important one. It's the point at which you're playing an octave higher than the open string. Those words don't have to make sense for right now. Just know that the 12th fret is kind of an important thing to be able to jump to while you're playing. So they assume that if they put double dots on the 12th fret, so you can know this is the octave point, this is where you can jump ahead, then you could go one fret back from there and know that that's the 11th fret. So they put them on sometimes the first fret, very rarely, but frequently the third fret, definitely the 5th, 7th, 9th, and then 12th. And then after that, they would do the same thing. So after the 12th fret on this one, they put one on the 3rd fret away from the 12th because this is kind of like the starting over point. So like we would have over here the 3rd fret, they put one on the 3rd fret, and then the 5th fret, and then the 7th fret. But on this one, like that, you're kind of running out of room at that point. So you're not really going to be playing very much up there. So again, those are the frets and the position markers that tell you what fret numbers you're playing. This whole thing right here has several different names, sometimes called the fingerboard because it's where your fingers are going to play. It's sometimes called the fretboard because it's the board that the frets are on, and then sometimes just referred to as the neck. So depending on like what you're referring to, your finger movements or the frets, or if you're referring to just like it's standing up, like this looks like the neck of the guitar. So it's got several different names, and then we've got the position markers on there. And then this thing right here is really convenient. This is called a cutaway. So usually a guitar would be shaped like this right here, where it's just rounded. But you can see on this other one, this one's cut out a little bit more because on this one right here, I'll try to be careful with all my guitars here. On this one right here, that looks precarious. On this one right here, if I want to play really, really high, then my hand's going to start to run into this thing right here, and I wish that this thing wasn't here so I could get up to all these frets and I didn't have to like jump over. Well, on this guitar over here, we've got that little cutaway. So a cutaway is a pretty common thing. Almost every, most of the electric guitars that you're going to be playing are going to have a cutout or a cutaway in it. A lot of the acoustic guitars do. And then, of course, on like a ukulele, like there's a little mini cutout on this one. It's kind of cute. It kind of doesn't do really much of anything because the frets are all right there anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But on a bass guitar, on this one, and on bass guitars is really important because it's already really tough to move around on a bass guitar. So like if you get up here and you end up having to do this stuff, that's no good. So this one has a big cutout, so I can pretty much put my finger all the way up to that last fret because of the cutaway on this one. Now on this one, you'll notice the back of it is just flat. There's nothing really there. On the other instruments that we have, like the ukulele, it's got like this chunk right here. And that chunk right there, all these other ones have it. That's called the heel. So it's kind of the back part of the neck where it's going to connect to the body. And that little part that just sticks out right there, that's called the heel. Next up, we'll go back to the acoustic guitar. The main part is called the body of it. And the hole where the sound comes out is called the sound hole. And obviously, like there are some instruments like this electric bass, or most electric guitars are not going to have a sound hole because the sound is actually generated from the pickup on it, the place where you would plug the cable in to the guitar, and that's where the sound's going to come out. And so on the ones that are acoustic, the sound comes out of the sound hole, and then there are acoustic electric guitars where you've got both. So this is an acoustic electric. You can plug it in, and then the sound will go out there, but it'll also come out the sound hole. And then there are some acoustic guitars where the sound hole, either like the sound hole is like in some design off to the side or up at the top, and it's just flat across the body of it. Or there are other ones that just look like they're covered up, and that's because in most cases they're just mostly supposed to be used to be plugged in. So that's the sound hole. Just a few things left here. This thing right here is called a pick guard, and that's because as you're playing guitar for a long time with a pick, as you strum down, your pick is going to hit your guitar. If you don't have a pick guard, then that's going to wear out your guitar. So you can see here on this one, right here, this has no pick guard. So if I played this one a whole lot, we'd end up seeing a lot of wearing right there. And if you see, especially on electric guitars, they've got this like vintage look on them where like they will wear that down on purpose, kind of like pre-worn jeans, where they'll just wear that down so it looks like you've been playing a whole lot there. So the pick guard is supposed to make it so that that doesn't happen, but then they'll put a pick guard on it and then wear it down, so it kind of defeats the purpose of that. But you'll notice if you see a guitar that looks kind of like, actually, let me go to this one here. This one does not have a pick guard on it. And you can see I've got a bunch of chunks like dug out of this thing right here from pulling on strings there. So that part just generally kind of wears down. In all of my years of playing, I've never played a guitar where there was so much wear on that it made a big difference, but I'm sure that it does for some people. And it's just kind of a cosmetic thing too. If you don't want it to be all worn down, then you can replace the pick guards on them as well. Then the last parts are down here. We've got a couple important things. These are bridge pins right here. This is the part where when we go to change the strings, the string is going to go inside the guitar, and then the bridge pin is going to hold that string in place. So these little dots right here, that's actually a whole pin. It'll come out, and when you go to change your strings, you'll see that. Those bridge pins pull out, and then those bridge pins are on this whole big chunk right here called the saddle. So let me point out here on the ukulele, we don't have bridge pins because the strings are tied at the end, and so there's no need to like push a pin in to keep that string in place. It's just tied in place. But this one does have the saddle right here, so that big chunk right there is called the saddle. Right here, this is called the saddle. On a banjo, let me show you this. This one right here doesn't really have a saddle. This right here is called a tailpiece. And so that's where the strings come down, and they all kind of tie in right there. And that is actually lifted up off of this part right here, which is called the head of it, because it's actually like a drum head, like you would find on drums. That's what makes the sound on this one, because it doesn't have a sound hole. It just has the head that this is going to vibrate on. So that's a tailpiece on a banjo. And then we've got the saddle right here. And then this little piece of plastic right here is a really important piece, especially if you've got, well, okay, it's a really important piece no matter what. And when you go to change the strings, you'll want to make sure that this thing does not fall out. It doesn't get flipped around. So be careful of your bridge, and this will wear down. It's just a plastic piece right there, and it pops out. So you can replace your bridge. You can make it higher, you can make it lower. The higher or lower it is, that's going to affect how far away the string is from the neck or from the fretboard. So if you've got a really high bridge and you've got a really high nut, then that's going to lift that string up a whole lot off of your guitar, and so that string is going to be up a lot higher. That means it's going to take a lot more effort to press all those strings down to get them to reach all the way down to the fretboard to play them. It has other advantages too, but just know that the bridge is a really important piece. A lot of times also for guitars that plug in, the part there that picks up the sound is underneath the bridge, because when that string vibrates, that'll vibrate the bridge, and underneath that is where it will pick up the sound. So there are some pickups that the pickup is actually right here in the sound hole, and then other ones that are underneath the bridge right there. So the bridge is a pretty important part. Let me show you a couple others here. This banjo, has a bridge on it right there. And that's obviously just connected to that drum head, like we said before, the head of the banjo. And so that's what's making the sound. That's kind of like the pickup on an acoustic guitar, because the pickup of it, the thing that's picking up the sound, is underneath the bridge. This, by the way, is called a resonator, this bottom part here. And then on the bass, this whole tailpiece down here, this bottom part, looks a whole lot different. And so these each have their own individual adjustments for how high or low the strings can be. So I think that covers all of the pieces of all of those. Let's see here. Let's go back. We did the pickguard, the saddle, the bridge pins, and then we did the pickups as well. So I guess until next time, now you know how to refer to all the different parts on your guitar. Go explore, mess up, have fun, rock on.